All right, so let's get right into it today. We're going to tackle a really provocative idea. What if the entire financial system, the one that's supposed to support us, is actually a trap? We're going to break down exactly how this systems trap is supposed to work, and then look at a completely different path some people are taking to find real financial freedom.
So, the material we're digging into today kicks off with a real zinger. The human species is sometimes dumber than animals. I mean, wow, that's a pretty bold claim, right? It's designed to make you just stop and go, wait, what? So, what could they possibly mean by that?
And this comparison kind of lays it all out. Think about a cat's life. It's super simple, right? It eats when it's hungry, sleeps when it's tired, runs when it wants to. Now, look at our side. We've built this complex world of 30-year mortgages, starting our lives already in debt, and just working and working until we're old. The argument here is that we've used all our incredible intelligence to build ourselves a really, really complicated cage. So this whole idea of a self-made cage, that's what this first section is all about. Let's really dive in and see what this invisible prison is actually made of. The core idea, the big point, is this. We are essentially slaves without chains. We're not physically bound, but we are absolutely tied down by money, by debt, and by that constant, nagging fear of not having enough. It's an economic cage, not a physical one. And this is pretty much how the trap works. The source calls it the modern life script, and it probably sounds familiar. Step 1, you study hard. Step 2, you get a job. Step 3, you immediately get into debt for a house, a car, you name it. So step 4, you've got to work even harder just to pay it all off. And step 5, well, the cycle just keeps going. The problem is, this script leaves almost no room to actually build your own assets. Okay, so let's move away from the big, abstract idea of a trap and look at a very real-world example that shows the cracks forming in the system. That brings us to our second section, our money, but we can't withdraw. To really see this in action, we have to look at a recent case involving BlackRock's HPS Corporate Lending Fund. Now, just for context, BlackRock is an absolute giant. We're talking about one of the biggest asset managers on the planet, handling trillions of dollars. What happened with this one fund is a perfect and maybe a little scary example of the system's hidden risks. So look at this. This is where it gets really interesting. The fund had a rule, okay? You could only withdraw up to 5% of the fund's total value each quarter. Seems simple, but as people started getting nervous about the economy, they wanted their cash. And they didn't just ask for a little, they requested to pull out 9.3% of the fund. That's nearly double the limit. The fund just couldn't do it. They couldn't pay everyone out. This whole problem actually has a fancy financial name, liquidity mismatch. But it's a super simple idea, really. It's just what happens when everyone wants to get their money out quickly, but all that money is tied up in assets that can only be sold slowly, like long-term corporate loans. The wild part is that the money isn't gone. You just can't get to it when you want it. And this all boils down to one fundamental gut punch of a question. Why do we have to ask permission to withdraw our own money? It just feels wrong, doesn't it? It perfectly highlights that loss of control we have over our own assets inside the traditional system. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? That brings us to section 3 and a really powerful analogy that the source uses, your own rice barn. Okay, think of it like this. Traditional banks and funds are like the old village rice barn. Back in the day, everyone in the village would store their rice harvest in one central communal barn that was managed by somebody else. It was safe, it was organized, but you didn't have direct control. Now, the alternative idea, represented by cryptocurrency here, is like having your own rice barn. You are in complete control of your assets. You don't need to ask the village elder for permission to access your own rice. It's a total shift to what's called self-custody. And ultimately, what this all represents is a huge shift in what or who we trust. In the old way, you trust an institution, a bank, a fund manager, the people in charge. In the new way, the idea is you trust the code. You're putting your faith in the transparent, automated rules of the system itself. Okay, so trusting the code sounds great in theory, but what does that actually look like in practice? That brings us to our fourth section, build networks, liberate people. This table just lays it out perfectly, side by side. On one side, you've got traditional finance. An institution holds your stuff. Control is permissioned, meaning you need their approval, and your trust is in people and institutions. On the other side, you've got blockchain finance. You have self-custody in your own wallet.
control is permissionless, and your trust is placed in code and math. Now, the source material points to platforms that are actually built on this new model. One example given is a project called Cash NFT Pro, but honestly, the specific name isn't what matters. It's the principles that are key. Systems like this are decentralized, so no single company is in charge. They run on automated smart contracts, which basically act as the unbribable middleman. And most importantly, your assets are kept in your personal wallet, which directly solves that whole asking for permission problem we saw with BlackRock. The whole point of tools like this is to build a completely new kind of economic network.
And this is where it all becomes about something way bigger than just technology. The source argues that networks have power. So the challenge it poses is this. Can we use these new tools to build a financial network that actually liberates people? One that helps them create their own assets, instead of just being cogs in that same old machine.
And that thought leads us directly into our final section, and a really powerful choice we all have to make about the future. So the final question the source leaves us with is this. Are we going to build a community of asset creators, people who truly own and control their own financial destiny? Or are we just going to pass down the same old script, letting our children become laborers stuck in the same system just like us? It's a choice, not just about finance, but about the very legacy we want to create.